Welcome to the channel, welcome to the channel, welcome to the channel, yeah.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. This is Kamaria or Black Siren Creates, and we are in the car loop. And I'm going to talk about books. So this is going to be like one of my first recommendation videos. And I don't normally do these just because I think book choice is very personal. And you like what you like. And I'm not trying to tell you what to read, how to read. But I can give some suggestions. But by the time I upload this, anyway, I'm Kamaria. Hello. Greetings and salutations. I am your resident part-time booktuber. And today we're going to talk about trans books. Because it's going on starting today, going to March 31st, is the Trans Rights Readathon. It was originally created, I think, by Sim Kern. It's been going on for like 3 years, I think. And it's just a way to put a spotlight on trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming authors and stories. And like I say with anything like this, you should read this stuff all the time. We don't like performative allies here or anywhere else. But anyway, so this is just a good way to highlight trans stories and donate to trans causes because of our current climate and any climate. You know, we need to uplift trans people. Trans people exist and will always exist. Anyway, here are my personal favorite trans, non-binary, trans umbrella authors or stories. I love to read outside of my own experience. I am queer. I'm queer. I might be married to a man and I might have some babies, but I am not I am a queer person. And I do think that it's important to read outside your own life experience, just to be a more well-rounded individual. But I think everybody's story is important, not just the ones that you can relate to, because we're all humans. We can all relate to anything. Stop being closed-minded. Anywho, so my personal issue with recommending, God, girl, get it together. Recommending books is I see a lot of recommendation videos on BookTube itself, and half the time the people haven't even read the book, and I'm kind of perplexed of like, how can you recommend a book if you've never read it? Because like anybody can read a synopsis, but I feel like if you recommend a book to somebody, it needs to be a book that you have read, that you've vetted. You know, hey, this is a book that I think is worth your time. How can you recommend it if you don't know, if you haven't read it? I feel like you get yourself in hot water. You recommend a book and then you read it and it sucks. I mean, I don't know. You have to be able to defend your choices. And if you're like, oh, well, I didn't read it, I just read the synopsis and it fits the categories, or I looked at the comparisons. So it's like, no, recommend books you actually read and you stand by. I think it's important. Anyway, so here we go. Some of these are going to be authors that I like, and then some of these are going to be specific books. So the first one, I want to say it's in no particular order, but it is. It is. Because the ones that I wrote down first are going to be probably my favorites. And the rest of them I kind of had to refresh my memory. But first one, River Solomon. I will read anything that River Solomon writes. It started with The Deep, and then I read An Unkindness of Ghosts. Then I read Sorrowland, and then now Model Home. I will read whatever they write. Period. Their books are very dense. They're very deep. Their writing is not for everyone. It's very involved. Like, the characters in River Solomon's books are very much in their head a lot. So it's a lot of inner monologue. It's a lot of like, you are in somebody's consciousness. And it's very deep, and the prose that they write is usually, you got to turn your brain on. That's not fluffy reading. My personal favorite is Sorrowland, and it's about a character named Vern, and they are kind of escaping their home, which you find out is kind of like a cult, and they're pregnant, and they're in the woods, and they have their babies, and they're starting getting hunted in the woods. Anyway, they turn into some kind of experimental mushroom person. It's wonderful. It's great. Very weird. All of those books are going to be a little strange and kind of out there, and you might not get it, but you'll have a good time if you're okay with being in a fever dream. The next one is like a recent read that I read at like the beginning of March, and I fell in love with it. Like, I was in that world for a good week, because usually I can finish a book in like a day if I want to, if it's good. But I wanted to take my time with it. I wanted to savor this one. And it's Under the Dragon Moon by Moss Hanlon. It's trans, autistic, magic. It's basically like if Howl's Moving Castle was queer. So the main character is kind of like a magical, I wouldn't say PI, but magical PI. Like, they find things, and sometimes they have to do it illegally. So it's a love story. It's fantasy. You're searching for a dragon egg. The two main characters fall in love along the way. There's a lot of magic. There's a lot of info dumping. There are a lot of magical creatures and different worlds, because there's the earth world and the fairy world and all different things. It's a lot, but it's so great, and it's spicy. So warning, if you're not into smut, this is not the book for you. But it balances, because I like spicy scenes in my books, but not just that. Like, it has to have a plot. It can't just be scene after scene of that. Like, there has to be a plot. And this one, the plot is very good. The love interest has ADHD. There's lots of different representation, non-binary representation, trans representation, ADHD, mental health. The magic system's really, really cool. It's a great time. The next one is more a body of work. So Aiden Thomas is a trans Latinx author. He has written the Sun Bear Trials duology and the Cemetery Boys, which is coming out with a second book, so I'm super excited. Anyway, so Cemetery Boys. So you have lots of representation in those books too. You got trans people, you got different sexualities, different mental health, different disabilities. The Sun Bear Trials is more like fantasy. It's like Percy Jackson and Hunger Games type, with lots of like Mexican heritage, a love letter to Mexican heritage. So it's really good. All the side characters are great. You have deaf representation in that one. You have everything. Then Cemetery Boys is more like ghosts, witches, stuff like that. Those are both young adult too. Then Most Ardently is a historical romance. It's basically a Pride and Prejudice retelling, and I'm a hoe for anything Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is like my favorite classic of all time, and I avoided Jane Austen for quite a bit because I don't really like reading a lot of classics if it's just a whole bunch of dead white people. And I was an English major, and a lot of those things, it's like, oh, you have to read this, this, and this because that's the canon. And that's what whoever has told us is good literature. And I'm like, I don't want to. I'm going to read what I want to read. I want to read marginalized stories. I want to read different things, you know, that aren't necessarily what is considered, you know, good literature. Anyway, but when I finally did read Pride and Prejudice, I was like, oh, I get it now. I get it now. I love Pride and Prejudice. So that one is basically Elizabeth is trans and Mr. Darcy's gay. That's all you need. I have another one that's kind of in that same realm. It's trans Regency fantasy romance. It's A Heart to Hold by Sula Sullivan. And it's a novella. It's short, it's sweet, it's cozy, it's lovely. It's definitely more focusing on the love story than the plot. There's magic. It's black. And the main character's love interest is trans. So it's just they're supposed to be like fairy tale kind of retellings. I think this one is technically supposed to be like Snow White, sorta. But it doesn't read like that. It doesn't read like that at all. But it's just nice. Cozy, heartwarming, all the happy feelings. The next one is not like that at all. The next one is The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. This is classified as YA. The people they're teenagers, but it is not. It's gory. This is horror, body horror, gore. It's set in kind of like Victorian times, and there's magic, but only men are allowed to use it. And if women use it, they go crazy, and then they get thrown into the mental institution. And the main character is trans, and they find out that the main character was trans, dressing like a boy and stuff, and using the magic when they're not supposed to. So they just threw them in the loony bin. And that's what you did with women back in the day. You lobotomized them if they were too smart or, you know, wanted to be independent, have autonomy, whatever. So they are trans, but they get thrown into the loony bin mental institution for women with hysteria. And the girls are going missing, and they want to figure out why, and also like leave. Yeah, it's dark and gory. Really good though. It's really, really good. The writing is immaculate. I prefer The Spirit Bears Its Teeth versus the other book by Andrew Joseph White. Hell something. It's more like religious, angels and stuff, and I can't really read books that are hardcore religious. It just rubs me the wrong way. I just can't do religion in books. Like, even if it's like evangelical cult, I not my thing. The next one is just something fun if you need a break. The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. It's a graphic novel, and it's basically the main character I think was getting married off or something in her kingdom, and she didn't want to get married, so she like ran away and had to be in a neighboring kingdom, and to disguise herself she started dressing like a man, but then she realized, oh, I kind of like dressing like a man. And then she fell in love with the princess of their country. It's just lovely. It's just, you know, sweet. just two people falling in love, and it's just really sweet. Other graphic novels that are also really good, anything by Kay O'Neill. It's fantasy, it's cozy, and non-binary people and transness, gay, queerness is just normalized. It's not like, oh, coming out party. It's just like, oh yeah, and that's my aunt and my other aunt. Like, it's not really a big deal ever. It's just kind of the status quo of things. And I feel like, honestly, that's how it should be. The next author is Akwaeke Emezi, and they have an extensive and very eclectic body of work. They have written contemporary, romance, horror, fantasy, speculative fiction. And their writing style is very, like, a lot like River Solomon, in a way that their writing style isn't going to be for everyone. It's very dense. I like kind of stream of consciousness lyrical prose, but not everybody does. A lot of people like just kind of straightforward writing, and Akwaeke Emezi does not do that. And Akwaeke Emezi doesn't spoon feed you either. They don't hold your hand through it, you know? Like, it just is what it is, and you just kind of have to figure it out. And I think a lot of times when you have queer fiction, or even any kind of marginalized fiction, there are some times where you can tell the book is written for people who need lessons. Like, for the people who don't know, it's like, okay, here, queer 101. This is trans 101. This is blackness 101. You know, oh, here's, so you can understand, let me hold your hand and spoon feed you what the experience is, so you can, you know, get a better understanding of what it's like to be, you know, fill in the blank. I do feel like there are books like that. They're kind of like a guide for people who don't want to do their own homework, or I don't know. But you can tell sometimes when a book is written for people who are in it, or when the author expects something out of you. Versus, oh, here, let me spoon feed you the experience. Akwaeke Emezi is not going to spoon feed you the experience. They are going to just throw you into the deep end, baby. And you're just going to have to figure that out. You're going to be confused. Maybe, but you're going to have a good time. Very similar to River Solomon, actually. But my favorite Akwaeke Emezi books are The Death of Vivek Oji, which is basically just a kind of, not mystery, but like a family member dies. They have to figure out why they died, and then they kind of stumble across that person's kind of secret life, because where they live, it's not okay to be queer, you know, so they had to kind of figure out, why did this person die? Did I even know them if they couldn't share their authentic self with me? It's beautiful. Heartbreaking, but beautiful. And then You Make a Fool of Love with Your Beauty is just messy. It's like, hey, I'm gonna sort of date this guy. Not really, but then I'm gonna meet his dad. And then I'm like, oh. But that still deals with serious topics too. There's family dynamics and grief and sexuality and lots of different things. But it's very messy, very melodrama, soap opera type thing. It's lovely. It's great. I enjoyed it. So I have two more for you. The Summer Sons by Lee Mandello. This is going to be a gothic horror mystery. Unreliable narrator because homeboy's having hallucinations and you don't know what's real and what's not. Basically, he and his best friend were super tight, and then his friend went off to college, but then dies, and everybody said it was self-inflicted death. But he's like, no, he would never do that. So then he kind of goes to this, to his best friend's college, meets all his new friends, and kind of stumbles across like secret society stuff and trying to figure out, okay, what happened to my friend, because he wouldn't do that. But it's very, I want to say swampy is the word I want to use. It's very like dirty, and it's horror, it's gothic horror, and it's kind of scary. But I love the writing. The prose is well done. It's very good. Sorry, car wouldn't start. Anyway, and then the last one is just kind of another like romance, fluffy, happy ending. This is going to be Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. And this is the main character's love interest is non-binary, and they're on a cooking show, and a lot of the focus is on being non-binary and what that means, and kind of being the face of being non-binary, because the person is like the first non-binary person on like a reality TV show. But it's like a cooking competition too, and I love cooking competitions. Like the Great British Bake Off is my jam. It's my favorite show. I will watch it. It's my comfort show. I will watch it over and over and over and over. So that's just a kind of a love story, but lots of cooking descriptions, and it's happily ever after, people falling in love. It's a great time. Not to say it doesn't have some real issues in there. Don't think it's just happiness all the time, but it's definitely cute. And that's, I think, by Anita Kelly, if I didn't say it. But yeah, those are some of my recommendations. So read trans. Trans people exist and will always exist. And just, you know, this readathon is also trying to raise money. You can donate to somebody's GoFundMe or a trans organization. I'm broke as a joke, so I'm gonna make this video just to kind of bring awareness and try to share some authors and stories that I think are worth a read. But that's all I have for you today, guys.